Chapter 6. The Field of Frozen Questions. The land beyond the shattered bridge stretched wide and pale, glittering under a light that did not come from the sun. The sky above was the color of tarnished silver, unmoving and distant, as though it had been hammered into place and forgotten. The air felt thin, brittle in Leo's lungs, like breath taken too quickly at high altitude. At first, Leo thought snow covered the ground. Then he saw the words. They rose from the earth like ice sculptures, delicate, intricate, and sharp. Some spiraled upward like frozen vines, curling and looping in elegant arcs. Others stood as jagged pillars, fractured and leaning, as if frozen mid-collapse. Still others formed lattices so fine and complex that they chimed softly when the wind passed through them, a sound like glass tapping glass. Leo slowed, heart thudding. He stepped closer and read them. They were questions. Why did she leave? Curled upward in frozen script, its letters thin and sharp as blades. Where is she? Leaned like a cracked obelisk, its surface veined with fractures. Am I to blame? Stretched into a fragile web of ice, so fine it looked ready to shatter under its own weight. Leo's stomach tightened. The questions were his, thoughts he had never said aloud because giving them words made them feel too real, too dangerous. Here, they stood solid and unavoidable, turning doubt into landscape. He walked carefully between them, breath fogging the air. His boots crunched softly against frost. When he brushed his fingers against where is she, cold burned through his skin, sharp and sudden, as if the question itself had teeth. He jerked his hand back, heart pounding. The field was beautiful in a cruel way. It glittered like a frozen garden beneath the silver sky. But it was barren. No animals moved here. No trees broke the horizon. Only doubt made physical, stretching endlessly in every direction. A shape shifted at the edge of his vision. Leo turned. A creature stood several paces away, its form unstable, its outline never quite the same from one moment to the next. It was made of mirrors, thin planes of reflective surface that slid and rearranged themselves constantly. Light fractured across it. Shadow clung to it. When Leo stepped toward it, it drifted backward without sound, as though distance itself bent to accommodate it. "What are you?" Leo asked. The creature did not answer with words. Its surface flashed instead. Maya's profile appeared, blurred and distorted. The doorway of their home stretched too wide, too tall. The silver star on Leo's scarf multiplied into a dozen reflections, each shining faintly, each slightly wrong. Leo's chest tightened. "Where is she?" he demanded. The mirrors rearranged again, returning his question in fragments. "Where am I? Where are you? She, where is?" The words echoed oddly, overlapping and incomplete. Frustration flared hot beneath Leo's ribs. "I don't want riddles," he shouted. The mirror surface rippled. Around him, the frozen questions chimed faintly, their sound sharp and amused, as though the field itself were listening. Leo turned away and began to walk faster. The farther he went, the more the field seemed to grow. Questions rose where none had stood before, pushing up through the frost as if drawn by his movement. What if, and how could, and if only, crowded closer, hemming him in. He stopped before a tall sculpture that stood alone, its letters thicker, heavier than the rest. When will I see her again? The words glittered coldly. Leo stared at them until his eyes burned and blurred with tears. Anger surged suddenly, anger at the night, at the mystery, at Maya for leaving, at himself for being small and powerless. Before he could think better of it, he lifted his boot and kicked the sculpture. It shattered. Ice exploded outward, scattering light across the field like shattered stars. Shards clattered and slid across the frost. When the echoes faded, the silence that followed felt immense. Leo stood panting, breath ragged. His knees buckled and he sank to the ground, shoulders slumping. The scarf around his neck was his only warmth. He pulled it tighter and pressed the silver star against his chest. He stared at the broken shards of when will I see her again. A thought settled slowly, heavy but clear. Maybe there was no answer. Not yet. The idea frightened him, but it did not crush him. He realized then that he had been demanding certainty from a world that did not offer it. He had been treating questions like enemies, when perhaps they were something else entirely. Clues. Directions. Leo rose slowly, legs trembling. Nearby, half buried in frost, a smaller question caught his eye. It stood thin and sharp, almost overlooked among the larger doubts. Which way? It pointed nowhere. Leo approached carefully and placed his hand on it, expecting pain. Cold bit into his skin, but beneath it, he felt something else. A faint pulse, steady and persistent, like a heartbeat trapped in ice. He broke the sculpture free. It chimed softly as he lifted it, light passing through its frozen letters. As Leo moved deeper into the field, the ground beneath his boots began to change. The smooth frost cracked and shifted, forming ridges and shallow trenches that forced him to adjust his steps. Each movement sent ripples through the frozen questions nearby, making their letters tremble and hum like struck glass. The pull from which way grew stronger, then suddenly veered sideways. Leo stumbled as the ground tilted. The field rearranged itself with a low, grinding sound. Towers of questions slid past one another, colliding and reforming into new shapes. What if I'm too late? Slammed into what if I never find her? Forming a jagged wall that blocked his path. Leo ducked instinctively as shards of frozen words sheared off and rained down around him. One grazed his sleeve, slicing the wool cleanly. Cold rushed in. So it's like that, he muttered. He ran. The field responded immediately. Questions erupted from the ground like ice spikes, forcing him to zigzag. His breath burned in his chest. Every misstep scraped doubt against his legs and arms, stinging like frostbite. "Why didn't you stop her?" screamed a pillar as he passed. "I didn't know," Leo shouted back, vaulting over a low lattice of ice. Behind him, the mirror creature reappeared, no longer drifting, but multiplying. 2 reflections became 4. 4 became a dozen, all gliding after him. Each reflected a different version of him, angry, crying, silent, afraid. They moved faster. Leo slid across a patch of slick ice and slammed into a lone question standing in the open. "What if you fail?" Pain flared, but instead of shattering, the words bent, flexing like frozen rubber, then snapped back, throwing him onto his back. The mirrors closed in. Panic clawed at Leo's throat. The compass question pulsed wildly in his hands. tugging in conflicting directions. "No," Leo whispered. "You're not in charge." He forced himself to slow his breathing. The world was moving too fast because he was moving too fast. Leo planted one boot firmly into the ice and pressed the silver star on his scarf against the frozen ground. Cold burned, but it was steady. The mirror creatures hesitated. Leo stood. Slowly, deliberately, he began to walk. The questions reacted, some flaring brighter, others cracking under their own weight. The mirrors flickered, their images blurring. Without panic to feed on, they lost cohesion, smearing into dull reflections. A deep crack split the field ahead. Leo stopped at the edge of a widening chasm. Below it, the ice thinned into mist, and beneath the mist lay nothing he could see, only the suggestion of depth and the echo of unanswered questions falling forever. The pull from which way pointed straight across. "There's no bridge," Leo said softly. The field shifted again. Questions leaned inward, forming a precarious chain. What if? Then what? And after? Each barely touching the next. Leo swallowed and stepped onto the first. It held barely. Halfway across, the ice splintered. Leo jumped, landing hard on the far side, sliding across frost before slamming into solid ground. Behind him, the chain collapsed, dissolving into pale light as it fell. Silence returned. Leo pushed himself upright, shaking with exhaustion. The field stretched on vast, uncertain, but no longer hostile. He looked down. Which way? Was thinner now, clearer. The pulse inside it was calm. Leo didn't know what waited ahead, but he knew this. He could move without answers. And he did. The field thinned behind him. The air grew heavier, damp against his skin. Frost gave way to dark soil beneath his boots, his footprints fading almost immediately. Ahead, the pale light dimmed. He heard it then, a low, steady sound, patient and continuous, like breathing, like waiting. Leo crested a shallow rise and stopped. Below him lay a wide river valley. A dark ribbon of water cut through the land, smooth and reflective in a way that felt wrong. The pull of questions was gone. In its place was something quieter and far more unsettling. Leo touched the silver star on his scarf. The river flowed without greeting or warning. After a long moment, Leo began to walk downhill toward the water. Behind him, the land of questions fell silent. Ahead, the river shimmered,